Okay, David, hi, I'm Susan, and it's great that we can get together and discuss, I think, a really interesting topic, which is the internet bringing out the best in us? My own view is that if people are spending a lot of time in this new place, this two-dimensional world of just hearing and vision, for every hour they're doing that, that's an hour not being in the real world, not walking along a beach, giving someone a hug, looking someone in the eye. And especially for young people who perhaps haven't rehearsed those skills, those interpersonal skills, and had those three-dimensional experiences where actions have consequences, then they might be missing out if they're doing this for long periods of time. And as a neuroscientist, I'm very aware that the brain adapts to the environment. It's exquisitely evolved, the human brain, to adapt to any environment it's in. And so therefore, if you have an environment that is so different, that perhaps people are existing in for substantial periods of their waking hours, then it's inevitable the brain will change. And my concern is, although there's many good things about the internet, that you can rehearse certain skills, by the same token, there's perhaps certain areas where you might see problems with attention, with possible addiction, with how you use information, how that relates to your memory, and above all, with how you relate to people and how you empathize with them.
I mean, it's early days, isn't it? And certainly at the kind of neurological level, there's a lot of research still to be done. I guess my experience, say looking at using the organisation as a metaphor.
Sure.
So with 38 Degrees, we're a hyper-connected organisation that relies very heavily on the internet to bring people together and make decisions. But we've at the same time recognised that that's no substitute for proper face-to-face contact. And so alongside all the online consultations we do with our membership, we also regularly organise curries with members in particular areas, because we know that, alongside having a conversation on Facebook, there's a value in sitting down with people and discussing things over beer and poppadoms.
Sure.
Maybe the thing we've learned to do is to switch between modes in ways, and that seems to be something that a lot of people are fairly able to adapt to. I mean, with any new technology, you can get some people who are antisocial with it, tweeting
of course.
when they shouldn't.
The big difference is if these are people you know in real life anyway, and then you're communicating via Facebook, that's just fine. That's great, that's just fine. When you've never met the people, and they're, as I say, they're an audience rather than friends, when they're people, you have several hundred of them. And then the concern is the more time you spend doing that, especially for young people, you're not rehearsing those face-to-face skills. You're not rehearsing empathy, you're not rehearsing reading body language, you're not developing in depth the kind of friendships that people up until now have experienced, simply because you don't have time.
Some of the kind of types of isolation which you're talking about, I think, probably a product as much of kind of economic forces and social change over the last 30, 40 years. And I think what we're seeing is actually in some ways that the internet is, at the same time as offering people virtual alternatives to face-to-face contact, it's actually offering people ways of connecting with people, meeting people who are like-minded, and then meeting them in the real world.
Without doubt. And I would love, for example, my widowed mum, who's 85, going on 86, I would love her to be on Facebook. She refuses for these very reasons. But I think the problem is, how do we shape an environment or shape a society where this will happen? I think it's an article of faith, and I know it's nice to be optimistic. I, as a scientist, all scientists are optimistic, so I'm optimistic naturally. How can we get there? Because I think the trends are, especially with the teenagers, that's not necessarily the case, that it's such a ready and tempting and non-challenging form of communication where indeed you can not be accountable for what you say. It is very tempting and very exciting, and you can communicate all over the world and you say what you like and people applaud you. You can have lots of followers, you can be cool. Yeah. How can we help people see that this should be a means to an end rather than an end in itself?
My sense is that it's quite hard right now to say what the long-term impacts are of some of the things, because we're only very short term.
Yeah, okay.
And so we are in the realm of speculation, which is like,
not quite.
It's good to start the
debate. Yeah, indeed, it's good to start the debate,
but ask the
I think given that we are dealing with the minds of the next generation, we can't really just sit around saying it's a longitudinal study, let's give it 10 years before we try and do anything or even think about it.
I guess what I'm saying is the extent to which you act on on limited evidence depends on your assessment of risk. And I guess my sense is that the picture you're painting is is quite a long way towards the pessimistic end of the spectrum.
Well, it depends on who you read. And what I personally say is I don't give value judgments, but I do say this is something too important to wait. If we look at the literature, if we look at the reports that are coming out, if we look at surveys, if we look at the goods and services that are indicating a certain mindset of the consumer, then this is something we need to start talking about right now.